Looks like it. Recording has started, right? Welcome, everyone. And thank you to Andrew for organising this session. Really, really excited to have our special guest, Tom West, which we will we'll get to shortly. So, Andrew, you could go to the next slide, please. Very quick introduction. Just this is being hosted by Dharma. Andrew and I are employed by Dharma. We're one of Splunk's largest partners in the UK. You'll not hear anything more about Adama because this is a sales-free environment, but I thought it was fair to point out who's hosting the session. Next slide, please, Andrew. Okay, so as we mentioned, Tom West is joining us. That is going to be the star attraction of this session that you've all joined for, I'm sure. And he's going to talk to us about dashboarding. And I did like the way you phrased it. I think you said for personal and professional use, which I liked, because as I'm sure many of you already do, dashboarding at home is a great way to pass the time. We'll then have a little roundtable Q&A. We always do this. It's just a really good opportunity. If someone does have a burning question, there's a whole load of Splunk SMEs on this call, and there's also a whole load of people that are just here to learn. So it's a really open roundtable and Q&A session. So we'll have that, and Andrew and I will share that to try and get through any questions people have. And then finally, we do have a little raffle at the end. JetBrains have sponsored us with a year's free license to all their, I think, almost all their software, which we're going to give away at random, because why not? Next slide, please. Okay, as always, just some house rules. Right? This is a place that is for technical discussions. Those discussions will not always be about Splunk-specific technology, but they will always be about big data and all the things, all the use cases that Splunk has to offer. It is a Splunk-centered group, hence Splunk user group. If you're here looking for a user group focused on another technology type, you're in the wrong place. This is an inclusive environment, and we do have a code of conduct. It's the Berlin Code of Conduct. It will have been on the RSVP page that you signed up. We do enforce it. Please be kind, be nice. We're here to listen, we're here to learn, and as I mentioned, we're here to be led by technology. So it's fine to talk about other things. Just don't see us as a sales opportunity. We're here to learn, we're here to share. Next, please, Andrew. Oh, yeah, and there you go. So it's a free annual personal subscription to all those products. And yeah, we'll get to that later on. Next slide, please. Okay, finally, Andrew, anything you wanted to cover? You all good?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll probably discuss some things over the round table as I admit more people into the lobby. Because there's been a number of new releases, so it might be interesting to talk about them, but obviously let's leave that for after this great demonstration by Tom. So Tom, would you like to start presenting?
Fantastic, thank you very much. Well, before I do, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep it there because I have no presentation. I've got no PowerPoint, nothing like that. We're purely going to go into the demo. So I am praying, as always, to the demo gods, but there we go. I think Harry was on a presentation last time that I gave, and the demo gods weren't kind, so maybe, hopefully this time. So my name is Tom West. I am a PS consultant working directly for Splunk now. I've been using Splunk for 3 years. I first went to Splunk Live back in 2018, I think it was, and discovered Splunk for the first time and thought, wow, how good this product is and how I could use this for my own professional life, where I was working 2 jobs ago, which was as a development manager. So I brought that into my own company, did a little bit with that, kind of way accelerated where I needed to go using Splunk, and then moved over to a partner. Have been there was there for 2 years and was very proud to be part of the COVID efforts for the NHS as well. And now I just recently moved over to Splunk. A few things as well. I have just moved house, and there's a bit of work going on outside, so I apologise for any background noise. And I have 2 small children, 1 and 4. There is every chance that at some point during this presentation, a little one will come in. Thankfully, my office is not near a toilet anymore. There won't be any disruption along the lines of "Daddy, I need a poo-poo," but you never know. These things happen when you've got young children. Aside from professional life, I'm especially proud to speak to the Edinburgh group, because so much of my own personal key moments in life have actually come in Edinburgh. I proposed to my wife there. I moved in with my wife. I asked her to move in, both in Edinburgh, and I'll be up there next month as we start thinking about more normal type stuff. We're using the opportunity of traveling domestic to introduce the kids to flying. One of them is especially hypersensitive, so that's a really good opportunity to do a bit of that and see another amazing city again. So no more talking about me. We'll just go straight into the presentation. Right, so just double checking. Teams has done a very nice thing and just minimized, which is always nice. Can you see my presentation? You see this?
Can indeed. Got it.
Fantastic.
If anyone would like to type questions away, by the way, feel free to use the chat. If not, I'm sure Tom will graciously accept them at the end, so feel free.
Well, actually, that was the one thing I forgot. Thanks, Harry. If you have a question, ask it. Don't feel free to unmute and just ask away, or type in the chat, and if someone else wants to read it, then again, feel free to interrupt me at any point. I'm not that fussy about everyone waiting to the end. Always happy to answer questions as we go through. We are covering quite a bit, so I don't want you to think that you have to hold all your questions. Just ask away whenever you feel like it. So we're going to cover over a few things. We're going to cover over tokens. So if you've not come across that, dashboarding is fairly new to you, or you've not really used tokens much and you just want a bit of a refresher, then we're going to cover that. Then we're going to go over to something called hidden text inputs. And this is a personal favorite of mine for making dashboarding really easy to set up and easy to maintain. And when someone comes to you later on and asks, can you change it? And it looks a simple change with hidden text inputs, it tends to be. Then we're going over to some CSS, exactly what you can do with that, just a little bit of a taste on that, really. We're going to start then looking at things like base searches, layouts for dashboards, other ways that you could accelerate the performance of your dashboards. Then we're going to go over to embedding your dashboards so that whenever anyone comes to you and say, can we make this dashboard global? Most of you will probably know that the answer is no. But there is a way of doing it, and there's a way of being able to do it that's very, very easy. If you're working in an organization where your web team is completely separate, which usually it will be, then this will help a lot. And then we're going to go over some version control, so just how you can manage the changes of your dashboards, if you alongside things like Git and any other version control that you have as well. So if we go into tokens, we just dive into this. Also, if my screen is too small, please tell me, I'll zoom in. So as we start with dashboarding, this is a quite common scenario. You have an input at the top, and then you have your joyous searches awaiting for input and red exclamation mark, which almost makes it look as though there's an error. And generally looks a bit untidy, a bit unclean, especially if you know that your layout is going to look different, it's going to be affected because of it. So you go in, you select an input, and then all of a sudden it's vanished and your search has run, and that's what you've got. So you can use tokens to make that look a lot easier. This is exactly the same search again, except there's a slight difference with the XML in the back end that's actually hiding that message, so you don't see it. It's good, it's very handy. It uses something called a depends flag, which I'll show you in a second, but it doesn't really encourage the user to select something. You need to know that you need to select something, but the same thing happens again. And then we go on to the last one, which is very, very similar to the one above. It's the same search, except this time we have a police select an option, a bit of text at the bottom and a select. We hit yes, and then that vanishes, and now we've got the hi there. So that search is then run again. So we use something called the depends and rejects flags for this. So if we just look through the XML of this dashboard, we have 4 rows. So we've got the first row being the content here. So that's this block here. Then we've got the second row right here, the third, which was the middle one, and then we've got the bottom one. So if we start top to bottom, what we have is we've got a basic panel, then we've got an input that's gone and set in a token. The token is defined within the input itself. So we have here input is type of dropdown, which is what this is. All the UI would do this for you. Then you specify the token that you're assigning this input to. In this case, we've got select view 1. Then we've got the choices, and underneath we've got this search, which is just a basic make results search. We've included the value of that token in. With make results, it doesn't matter. We're just using it to just show what having a token defined in a search actually does, which is it produces that view of searches waiting for input. So that's what's in there. When the token is not set, you would have that. When it has a value, then the search executes. Then we've got just an eval message hi there, and then we're just making sure that that's the only field that we're showing. Other than that, nothing particularly interested in this, other than the thing at the bottom, which is when we select the hi there, we've got a drill down in the table, which sets the token of show to row. And then we show that, then we see the table underneath, well, the panel underneath. And now we've got this row and the depends flag of show to row. So as soon as we click this table, it sets that token, that goes and enables, that makes this argument true, that the depends, that needs to, whatever is within the depends argument, that needs to be true. In this case, it's that show to row exists. So that being true. And then we go on to the next bit, which is exactly the same again. However, as the code above, certainly as far as the input, the table also has a depends flag on it of show to results. And what we've got here is we've got the search which runs, but it will only run when the select view 2, which is this token, exists. Once this runs and it finishes, then we've got some event handlers. So you've got different ones. You've got finalizing, done. You've got I think you've got error, and you've got my most favorite is progress. I should remember that one. I used to be a progress developer. So we've got those ones, and you can set the tokens depending on the state of your search. So we've got here, we've got the query of the make results query again. Only when that is done does the event handler for done go and then actually perform anything. In this case, we've got set token of show to results. That then goes to the parent object. Well, that enables the depends argument on the parent object, being the table, to be true, so then it will show. And it means that it's really, really useful if you're wanting to only show results of searches when you have when those searches are done. So if some searches take a while to run, then what you could do is you could have exactly this, being the table and depends, and actually just saying, I only want to show this when it's done because it takes a while. I've certainly done that in a few dashboards where I've got, I'm looking over quite a long period of time. I want to show the first bit of say the last few hours, last day or so, and I want to show that first because that loads really quickly. And then in the background, I'm going to have the dashboard run a much longer search, which is going to take a while. But I don't want the users to see that. The user is only going to be interested in the immediate now, or the immediate past, and then it'll be nice for them to see the more afterwards. So this is kind of a favorite technique of mine, using done and then the parent object of depends. Then if we go to the third row, it's exactly the same as before. We've got the done event handler on the table, making sure it shows. However, this time we also have this little bit of XML at the bottom, and it is really small. It's literally just a HTML block. And this time, rather than depends, we're using rejects on show 3 results. So we've got depends show 3 results, and we've got an underneath one of rejects on show 3 results. And this one just says, please select an option. And then that's how you get to that stage where you've got that input at the top, and you've got some HTML underneath going, please do something. And then once you've done it, you don't want to show the please do something anymore. So you have that on a rejects, so then that hides, and then you've got your actual search there. It's another good one if you've got things like loading. Really good if you use the progress event handler. When the search starts, you've got the HTML of depends on whatever your token is for loading, just to show a message saying it's loading. It can be a little bit easy. It can be a little bit nicer. The only problem with that is you don't see the progress bar. You probably could if you had if you made use of CSS. But that's way beyond anything that we're really going to cover today, looking into the deep dive parts of CSS. And then at the bottom, we've just got this bit of code at the bottom, which just shows the XML that we're looking at now. That's kind of a whistle-stop tour of tokens. There's a lot more to do with tokens. Really do recommend, if you've not used tokens, or even if you have and you've only used them at a basic rate, go back and just have a look at exactly what you can do with them. It's quite surprising, really, just how powerful they are. One thing tokens don't do, though, is have any sort of way of being able to conditionally set other things or unset other things based on the value of a token changing. So you have the set. Say for instance, we've got the set here. You can't conditionally say, well, actually, if this value is this, then I want to do this, or if it's this, then I want to do this. But you can with inputs, which is what we're going to go through now. So hidden text inputs is a personal favorite of mine, and I kind of go, if you have a dashboard that has more than 2 layers of drill down, well, 2 layers or more of drill down. So you drill down into one panel, then you drill down into another panel, then that's where hidden text inputs become really useful. So if you've ever had a dashboard and it's showing lots of things, and you select, say, a single value that's going to show a table underneath, and then you want to select a row in that table, and then it goes and shows you a chart, for instance, and then you want to change a value right on that top object. Without hidden text inputs, you've got to change everywhere that says, I want to unset this token, but set this token, unset this token, unset this token, set this token. Becomes a bit of a faff and a bit of a pain, and quickly becomes difficult to manage. When you have someone that comes and says, actually, I don't want the dashboard to do this, I just want it to do this instead, then you have to change a lot of different places just to get what looks like a really simple thing. But with hidden text inputs, it's a lot easier. So I changed this dashboard. One problem that I do have, I've just moved house, and one thing that has just happened is my Raspberry Pi with my smart home has decided to pop at the exact same time that I moved, which is generally what I rely on all this data for. So I've gone more historical with this, but you'll see in a second exactly what the problem is. So we're showing batteries of motion sensors. We've got this particular one, the motion sensor in the living room. Battery level's all right, it's at 45%. And it's stayed at 45.5% for most of the time. If I was still getting the data, I guarantee it would not be 45.5%. If it was, then there would definitely be a problem with it. But this is a good way of just showing, what my battery levels are on my battery-powered smart devices. Right, yeah, if there's ever that problem again, just shout up. It's fine. Just play Harry. So hidden text inputs. We've got this dashboard here, and like I said, we've got various bits of smart home data that should be sending in. A full rebuild of a Raspberry Pi is into you. That's good. So if I select this living room sensor battery table value, then it's going to go and show, what a time chart of what the battery level is. And we can see that the Raspberry Pi has stopped working as well, which is another good thing of getting your smart home data sent into Splunk. Whenever there's a problem, certainly if your hub has bust, and then you'll know about it pretty quickly. Whereas if you're putting all your alerts into things not working in your smart home hub, which is also controlling everything else, then if that fails, then you have no way of knowing until it comes to, say, like at the moment, 11 o'clock at night, and lights aren't turning on that they should be turning on, and that's not something you want to be starting to look at 11 o'clock at night. But yeah, we can see battery levels here. If we go to lights, then we see that the chart vanishes entirely as the table refreshes. And there's and now we just showed with the table showing lights. If I go to the bathroom light, for instance, and right now it should be 0 or 1s. At the time that the Raspberry Pi failed, the light was on, and we can see what that light level was. So the average being 253 out of 255. The max, min, and average should also be displaying. I don't know why that's not the case, but we should be seeing a chart of the state being on or off, and we've got a max, a min, and an average value for that particular light. I suspect it's not going to be this. It's not going to change if I choose anything else. Oh, there we go. Yeah. State, max, min, and average. So the state the state's there. We can see we've got the max, min, and average there. If I go to the motion sensors and just see what devices have gone and seen motion, which ones haven't. The living room, somebody was in the living room at the time it popped, and we can see that over those periods of time there was motion detected, because we're looking over such a long period of time, and it's looking for it's either 0 or 1. More than likely just going to show 1s for everything, but we should be seeing a chart of max, min, and average. And this is kind of important in a second. And we've got temperature here. Now we're seeing temperatures of each room. If I select the kitchen, it doesn't surprise me. That's kind of the coolest room, because that was the bottom of a 3-floor townhouse. I would expect that to be quite low, and we can see what the temperature is over time. Again, max, min, and average. So the dashboard looks the same in terms of we've got an input, we've got a table, then we've got a chart at the bottom, but there are some subtle differences, whether we're showing the state on there, whether we're showing just whether something was on or off. It does change just a little bit. So how that kind of works, normally what you would have to do is you'd have kind of a few, it's certainly if you were changing, also having drilled down in the kitchen sensor, in this chart here, then you've got a lot of different places where you have to change token values. But what we do, I don't have the XML for this one, so I have to dive into it. Into the UI first. We can see that we've got 3 separate charts. We've got one that we're currently showing. We've got 2 that are actually hidden. When you go to edit a dashboard, what you'll see is dashes around the panels to indicate that those ones would actually be hidden. And we can also see that for the title of each chart, we're actually just showing about a token value, and that's the same throughout. And at the bottom here, we've got this hide view and show view. So at the moment it says temperature or temp. If I change that to battery, you see now they are all hide, and this is changed to battery. If I go and change that and just select something, we can see what happens. If I then change this back to temp, then it's going to go and change the value of that one, and then it's going to unset these so they're all hidden. And what we're doing behind the scenes is we've got two separate inputs, one which is responsible for hiding everything, and one which then conditionally sets values based on whatever value was selected. So if we break this down, we have this fairly horrendous input at the top, which it's a drop down again. We've got some choices, then based on whatever was chosen, that executes a change event, and within there we've got conditions. So if the value that was selected is that, then we're going to set the token of hide view to battery, or we're going to hide the view of lights, hide the view of motion, hide the view of temperature. You probably wouldn't want it over-engineered for something as simple as this, but certainly if you're looking at drill down in panels, then this becomes quite handy. So if we go and have a look at the hide view token, it actually looks really simple. It's just a text input. The token is hide view, so the value for this is changed. The other thing to bear in mind is that we're making sure that the physical value of it changes is not just a token. So we make sure we have form dot and then the input token, and that then goes and basically acts as though the user's gone and changed it. And the reason we want to do that is so that we can activate the change event. So if this value has changed, which it would do whenever that input is changed at the top, then we basically unset everything. So we basically left with a blank dashboard as though we've not started. And then we go set the, and then what we have to do is we've then got to go and make sure that we only display what we want to display. So we have this set token, and then it's form dot show view. So the opposite of hide view, and we're setting that based on the value of this input. So it's dollar value dollar, and that goes and forces the value of this input into the value of this input, and here is just a condition. And the reason we can't have this all merged as one is you've either got the choice of just doing it global, as we have with hide view, just unset everything, or on condition. And that's kind of what we want. We want to reset everything, then just set it based on what that value is at the time. In this case, if the value is battery, then we want to set the token of time chart min, time chart range. If motion, then we also want to use the same charts, the time chart range, and then lights is time chart light. And if we wanted to change motion, so actually it's the same as the battery, then we can just change this here to time chart min. We don't have to do anything anywhere else. It goes and just automatically activates based on that, which is quite nice. Certainly if you're wanting to change the way drill down works, having to do it in one place rather than 5, 10, had to do, I think the most was like 23. Having to do it that many times, you have loads of different unsets and sets based on that, then that's where you are. So that becomes quite nice to be able to update it that way. But it's kind of difficult in a demo without building a very complex dashboard and having to show you how all that works to really kind of sell just how useful hidden text inputs are. Any questions so far? I will carry on. So the biggest victim of all my smart home being dead for a little while is with being able to demo CSS, because the dashboard I built for this doesn't work. However, that's not a problem because I've already prepared for that. So CSS can really change the way and look and feel of your dashboards. So if you, you may have gone and come across the virtualracer.conf, which happened last year, and maybe saw the dashboards that we put together. These are just simple XML dashboards with a CSS block controlling the layout. This is one such dashboard. You'll notice that the license has expired on this particular instance, but really what we wanted to demo is right there. So what we have is we've got a single dashboard that is going to be that we want to show all the race results, but only for a specific race. So race 1 was at Indianapolis, and we're showing the race sponsor is Red River. We've got the layout is very tailored to the sponsor that we had at the time, Red River. So if I go and change this and now show race 3, we're not refreshing the dashboard at all. There's no refreshing of the pages. We've just changed the value. That's going to load it up a separate set of CSS because that's just reading tokens, and we can completely change the look and feel of the dashboard again without having to refresh, which is a really good thing and why I quite like messing with CSS. And this kind of leads on to another thing as well. If you're working in your own organization, or if you are having to work for other people's organizations, having a dashboard that is tailored to the company's branding is massively valuable. Like I said, I was at the NHS, and at one point I was having to demonstrate charts and things to people that had never used Splunk, didn't want to know Splunk, too senior for all of that. Really what they wanted was just the data as it was at that time. So we presented it, but we presented it in a way that was very familiar for that organization, for the NHS, and made sure that it looked and felt exactly like any other kind of NHS product, and they loved it. They thought it was amazing to be able to go and do that because it just fit. And then all of a sudden you've got more buy-in for more stuff to be able to do and to get just to increase the scope of whatever it is that you're doing. If that's something you want to do, it certainly goes and cements your position where you are as well. And it also looks much better. In my opinion, it looks much better than a normal dashboard. I've gone and changed this a lot because we've got things underneath, but realistically, even if you just go and change the colors so that they better match, depending on what the organization's colors are, I think it tends to look better. And really all it is a bit of CSS. So if I go in here, I mean, this is monstrous, this one. But if we go and have a look at a bit, so we've got just within the dashboard itself, we've got a single HTML block, and there it's got, so it's row depends, and here we're using the token of hidden CSS. Basically that token will never exist, so you can't see that unless you're in edit mode. But all you would see is a blank line anyway. We've got panel, then we've got HTML, then we've got style. And you can change all sorts of things. You can change an individual panel by setting an ID to it. You can change the whole dashboard. So here you've noticed that we didn't have any kind of padding around the edges, certainly as far as colors went. And that goes on here. We've got the dashboard -body. Here we've got the background color, and we're setting that to the token of color 5. That's read off a search that I'll show you in a second, but it's basically a lookup with loads of different values in it. And this particular value is color 5, and we need to force it as important. This goes and forces precedence over anything that Splunk is going to do, so it means that that is what will happen. So whatever the value of this token is, then we force it as important, and it means that that's what the dashboard body color is going to be. And padding 0px important means that we remove all the padding from the side, and we can change dashboard rows, panels, panel bodies. We've got changing headers. We can remove the edit button, for instance, without actually, but still enable you to edit just by you changing the URL and adding edit at the end. But yeah, we've just a dot, and then the actual value means that it's going to be for Splunk dashboards, it'll be the global object. So the global object of single result is a good one, actually, because normally you would specify color or background color, but for single result, it's fill. So here it's fill on whatever color 2's value was as a token. And again, force it is important, and that allows us to dynamically change the color of a single text input without without actually having to do anything with the CSS, having to change anything. within the XML of that particular single value. This will just change it for everything. If we go a little bit further down, what we can see is we've got this hash of report_header. And if I go and search for that, we can see here actually it's just an ID. So we've got the ID. So on the row we have ID equals and quote report_header, and that then goes and filters down so that it can be used by the CSS. So here we're specifying that we want to change the settings of the report header. In this case, we want to make sure that the font weight is bold, the font size is 2EM, the color is set by a token, the padding bottom is fixed at 10 pixels, and then we've got the background color, which we're also changing. And we've done this for loads of stuff, and you end up resulting in the dashboard like here, which doesn't change any values because the environment's expired. But you kind of get an idea. And like I said, if we go to 2, you can see it all changed because Splunk sponsored that one, so background colors changed and everything. Really handy. And again, as for layouts, having one thing as well that we found worked really well is having some set templates. So if you create your own template, that's quite easy to edit. Other people that may not necessarily be as good with dashboarding, all of a sudden we become a lot better because they're just running off the template. Another project I was doing, my dashboarding skills, I hate saying this, my dashboarding skills were better there, and the other members of the team were better in other areas as well, such as data onboarding. And so what I did was create a template so that we could all make sure that the view look and feel was very uniform, and it also made it a lot easier for those that didn't know as much about dashboarding to really just to work without really any kind of help, any support. So yeah, I think if you can create some dashboard templates, you can then customize the CSS. You're not relying on changing it every time. It's actually one main bugbear I have with the new Dashboard Studio project, because it's so easy to change everything just that finite bit. And if everyone's creating dashboards and you even want to kind of keep the same look and feel, it becomes really difficult without some sort of set template. So I would very much advocate to try and create some templates if you can. And allow other people to use them. So the other thing on here as well, said that we'd go and have a look at the search. Is that a question? Okay, so the other thing that we wanted to show was base searches. Now these are the #1 way to optimize a dashboard. If you have even just a couple of searches, using a base search would really help. And basically what it is you've got your main search, which will run in the background as soon as you load your dashboard. Like a normal dashboard, if you have 6 panels and that you're not using a base search, then you will be executing at least 6 searches, more if you have sub searches, appends, joins, all that kind of stuff. But you could probably make use of a base search, and that is one search that will load, or multiple if you have multiple base searches. And then you can have your panels run off that individual base search, that starting base search. So now they're no longer generating searches, they're no longer going onto the indexer, they're waiting for that base search to finish, and then they're going to run what's called post-process searches, which is just that tiny little bit at the end. Could be a lot, but you're not impacting the indexer layer as much. So we have a really simple one here. We've got this search of race calendar. To use the base search, again, we just specify an ID. Sometimes it's a good idea just to specify an ID, even if you're not wanting to reference the base search, just so you can really easily explain what it is. Because if any of you tried to comment in XML in Splunk, it will go wrong. Splunk tries to reformat the XML so that it looks right, but the problem is that it also goes and wipes out any location for your comments and puts them all at the top, which is very nice. So here we've got a search. It is a base search. It's running right at the top. We've got form, and then one of the first things is a search object with an ID of race calendar. And here it's just running an input lookup against the CSV, pulling out a few values, and it's kind of finishing there really. That input that you saw at the top, that would always be hidden. That's passed in as an input from another dashboard. So what we've got here is we've got another thing that's really nice with searches is being able to set token values based on the results of your search. So here we're setting things such as color 1, those color tokens that you saw earlier. So we've got color 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these are done with $result dot and then whatever your field name is, and then finishing it with $1 as well, or pound. It's in America. So we've got, and that will then make sure that that value of that field is sent to that token, which can then be used elsewhere, such as CSS. If we go down one more, we've got another search, which is a bit more chunky, overhead line, and this is going to populate pretty much every single value. So here we've got search, we've got ID, it runs a search, and then we've got in those single values at the top, which are currently saying your license is expired, which should show in single values. And these here are just the same kind of search block, but you've got space, and then equals whatever the ID is of the base search that you're wanting to reference. And here it's basically, and then the search looks obviously a lot different. It's query, and then it's just, we've got head 1 and then table of car, so just showing the car, that's it, nothing more than that. And this particular search will just show the winner of the race. Then as we go down, we're using another search. Again, it's running off that same base search, but here we're showing how many laps were actually raced. Then we have what the fastest lap was. You kind of get the idea. You can branch many different panels off just that single base search. So it can be really powerful. The one thing to bear in mind, well, two things to bear in mind with the base search. One, you cannot edit in the UI. You have to go into the XML and edit it that way. If you go into the UI and you go into, we do it right now. We go in here, we have a look at the UI. It's actually just going to show whatever's in that query block of the XML. And if we hit run search, it won't run, but it will show you what gets sent to the search bar, which here is literally just head 1 and table car, which is no use to nobody. So the only way that you can actually see a full view of a search is either inspecting it, or you can actually hit, when you're viewing it normally, you would have the option to open that in a separate search. That will go and show the full search at that point. So that's the two ways that you could do it quite easily to try and work out exactly what's being run. Base searches, you need to make sure they're either a transforming search. That means it's either got to be chart, time chart, stats, any of those good transforming commands. The main reason that there is a limit to the amount of results you can pass into out of a base search and into your post-process searches. Last I remember, I think it was something like 500,000, but it's changed a couple of times, and I could be wrong. But there is a limit. If you go over that limit, Splunk isn't going to tell you about it. It's just going to run what the post-process searches are only going to run on the data it's been sent. You will have no idea that there's a problem. Your data might just look a bit weird. Another one that's a real pain, if you know that you're not going to have, say, 500,000 results, you know you're probably playing with a couple of hundred, and you're wanting to send those back. You know you've got all your search right, and then you've got the dreaded no results found. What on earth's going on? I know it's done it all right. You need to specify the fields or table pretty much at the end. To either the fields will just go and specify these are the fields you're interested in, or any other commands are basically going to force it back to the search head. If it's still stuck at the indexes when the base search finishes, then you will have no results to pass into your post-process searches, because those are always done on the search head, and then you just show no results. You go and expand it out, run it separately, and it shows results. Reason will always be because the linkage between base search and post-process search isn't right. Shoving a table command in the end of it for a base search would probably be the best bet. If you're just kind of wanting to specify fields, always use a fields command. But for the end of a base search, I tend to prefer a table, because the table command will force the search to send back the results to the index to the search head, whereas the fields command doesn't necessarily do so. So a few things to bear in mind there. The other thing as well is that it's kind of difficult to reference a base search elsewhere. This is when you start getting kind of really complex. But one thing you can do, when your base search is finished, you can actually save the job ID into the token, into a token, and then run a load job against that token value. That's another way of referencing a base search. There are a couple of times I've gone and done that in pretty complex dashboards, or in a dashboard which has become too big, takes too long to run, and so I split it out into two separate ones, keeping that base search in a token allows for that kind of thing. But a job will expire. That's kind of annoying. I think it also does with base searches. I could be wrong, but it's kind of a bit more difficult to refresh. So you have to build that logic in to your searches to go, hang on a minute, that job no longer exists, I want to rerun. Typically what I would do is I would have 2 base searches, one which does the main search and then another one which references the load job, and on the search condition, if that's failed, then re-execute that first one using tokens to control the state of the search. When tokens get really complex, being able to do that, control states of searches, that kind of thing. Almost the basic thing you saw at the start of a dashboard where it says your search is awaiting input. You can also take advantage of that same thing to go, actually, I don't want my search to run now. I want it to run in a little bit, so I'm going to force a token in there that doesn't exist. If you come across another of my apps called SPL Rehab, which is like an app to allow debugging of searches, if you ever look in the main dashboard, you'll see there's like 12, 13 searches, and they're quite complex. But we do the same thing there. We use tokens to only force a certain amount of searches to run at once. So it's never going to be all 12. I think the max is about 5, 6 at a push. But even then, the states change. So we don't overload the environment. But yeah, there's a lot that you can do with that. And with base searches, number one, in my opinion, in terms of being able to optimize the performance of a dashboard before you start looking at things like loading safe searches. Another thing that's really cool is that I'm not sure if they've updated the documentation, but if you're wanting to drive a panel based on the results of a safe search, you don't have the option to query. So it's literally just what you get as your safe search back in your results. But if you actually go and put that into a base search, then your post-process searches will run off that safe search. So you can then go and just do those last bits that you need to do to make that data look right for you, for that particular panel, all running off one safe search. That is a really cool way of being able to make a dashboard run a lot quicker than you would expect. Certainly if you're looking like previous days data, you want a safe search to run overnight, and then you want to create a dashboard that displays all those results, but in slightly different ways. Single values at the top, chart at the bottom, and you can absolutely do that with having a reference to that base search, reference to that safe search as a base search, lots of uses of search, and then you'll use your process searches in your final bit of dashboard. Really worthwhile checking out all that kind of stuff. Any questions so far? I've said search a lot. So the next thing that we're going to look at is answer that age-old question of how do I export a dashboard. You can either use Dashboard Studio, which I think has this kind of functionality. I know they were looking at it. I don't think that was private knowledge. So yeah, you can use Dashboard Studio, or you can use Safe Search Embedding, which is the only way that you can export any form of dashboard or anything that remotely looks like a dashboard, but you can only do it on a Safe Search level. Now, there are a few issues with doing that. Hey ho, yes, we don't have any data. Sorry, let me change this a second. We have, this is running, yeah, there you go, that's a nice one. Right, okay, well, what you should be able to see in there, which you can't see, is a trellis of different sensors detecting motion over a period of time. Darn you, Raspberry Pi. But this is a safe search, which is, which if we view the safe search, drill down should have done that for me. What you would see is the trellis here, and the problem is that if you ever want to, and this is marked as an embedded search. The main problem when you do start embedding searches is that you can no longer edit it. You can't edit how it looks, you can't edit the SPL, you can't edit the time range, you can't do anything like that whatsoever, and it becomes really frustrating. The only thing that you can do is you have to disable embedding. You then go and make your changes, and then you re-embed, which is fine. The problem is that an embedding goes and creates an iframe, and every single time that you create the iframe, I think it's the idea of the frame changes ever so slightly. So if you give this iframe to your development team or to a developer team, or you even just have it on your own web page, every single time you disable and re-enable, you have to then go and put that iframe back again, and it's really annoying. You can tell I find this a little bit frustrating, but there is something that you can do. So if I go, I'm going to have to just edit this ever so slightly. Sorry about this. Spoiler for anyone reading the XML. Yeah, he's not going to do it. There you go. Right, okay, so what it's actually going to do, what we can do is actually just have that save search run a macro, and that's literally it. So if we have a look at the save search, that should show things, but it doesn't. All it is just a reference to a macro, in this case motion by sensor. If you've never used macros, backtick, macro name, and then backtick will then reference that macro. And here we can see as well that by default we're looking just over the last 24 hours to now, and it's running at midnight every day, which is fine. But if I want to change that SPL, if I want to change the time range, which I really do, then all we need to do, there we go, is have a look at the macro. So the macro here is the actual full search of what's been run, but the macro has no idea that that's been referenced by an embedded search, and so you can absolutely edit the macro, and then next time that embedded search runs, it goes and runs whatever the macro is set to. So you can change the search without actually editing the editing any properties within that save search. The other thing as well that you can do is you can control the time range that search runs on just by forcing earliest and latest to take precedence on your search over what's in the time picker. So you can change it that way. All of which makes things a lot more easier. It's kind of a really handy one, just having that in a macro. I think that's it for that one. Any questions so far? Nope. I will carry on to the last one then. The only main problem with being able to edit a macro as easy, the chances are if you've got an set a search to embed, that you don't want to allow anyone to edit it, and you want to make sure that any changes are very tightly controlled. And yeah, we've got things like Git and any other version controls as well. But certainly if you're using something like Splunk Cloud, that becomes really difficult to very actively monitor. And so what we have here is we've also got version control for our knowledge objects. So here we've got it as dashboard version control, but you can do it for anything really. And this just takes advantage of Splunk's REST API. So this is the main search that runs. This is set as a save search. Again, it will run at midnight, and it will go and query. In this case, it's the actual raw object, the raw dashboard values itself. So you will get the dashboard properties, and you will also get the XML. So here we're making sure that, because this is the Splunk Trust stack, that everyone is on it, and so I'm only interested in stuff in my own app. Then we look at, just rename stuff and make sure that the EAI data field is very clear. It's really just controlling it's holding the dashboard's XML, so that's what we're doing here. Then we've got the date, just force the date to be now, so we know that the change is now, or it's being recorded at now, should I say. Then we're looking up again, we're just retrieving a lookup and getting the XML that's already stored in that lookup. Then we're just making sure that the XML, we're only interested now in objects that have changed, so where the XML is not as it once was, or the XML didn't exist in the first place. And then we just wanted force out, we wanted the date value, so now, the view name, so the dashboard name, and the XML, and then we're going to go and just output those and append to the same lookup. So then we've got a change and we've got an audit of when that was changed-ish. You could get the actual time, you could get more or less the time if you ran it more frequently, or if you ran it on demand as soon as you made a change. But that's what will happen. Here we've now got a search that's running, checking how many times your dashboards have changed. So if we look, for instance, at the embedded report dashboard, how many times that's gone and changed. You're going to show me? There you go. And now we can actually see the raw XML for each version. I don't think I'm outputting the version now, which is a mistake, but we can see, version 1, version 2, version 3, or the dates that they were changed. In this case, you can just edit the version by storing that number in there and incrementing it by 1. Yeah, you can see then how many times it's changed, when it's changed, and whatnot as well. Again, kind of a really handy one, just for a little bit of added alerting to know when things have changed, key knowledge objects have changed, and you didn't necessarily want them to. Just kind of good to maybe not have this as a dashboard or in a lookup, but just as a safe search that runs in an alert, checking against specific knowledge objects that you're really interested in. And that is pretty much that. And I've done Well, I say I've done an hour, but I haven't because I started talking a little bit late. But there you go. Any questions at the end? I'm going to take that as a no. If there are any questions you have any later on, then feel free to go and hit me up on the user group Slack channels. I'm at Westy. You can find me on there. I used to say like pretty much every day. Life has got a bit busier, certainly with moving house. So I am on there most times. Feel free to go and message me on there. I'm happy to answer. Also, I will be in some way or shape or form at Conf this year. At the moment, I have 3 talks, so you probably can find me on there. I'm basically going to end up talking about how you can use a smart home to create your own personal training environment. This talk is going to be getting a refresh, and we're going to be looking at something behind the scenes with the big data beard as well. But other than that, thank you very much for giving up your evening to listen to me ramble, waffle on. But other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom. Great work, and yeah, always happy to ruin someone else's demo. You know, it's my pleasure. I did have a question. I wanted to give everyone else a chance first. What would you say? You covered so many tips there and some awesome uses of what you can do, especially when you go behind the UI of dashboards. What would you say is like your number one tip? What trick do you come back to again and again when you're working?
Hidden text inputs. Hidden text inputs. Every single day of the week. The amount of time that I've gone and saved by adding in hidden text input logic into dashboards is just, I would still be doing them. So I've saved a lot of time and effort by doing it, and it makes it a lot easier as well to edit my own apps. So I mentioned SPL Rehab, that relies a lot on hidden text inputs because it is essentially dynamic. How do you want to debug your searches? Do you actually want to look at the raw values? Do you want to look at the performance metrics? So allowing hidden text inputs to control how you want to see it makes it very easy for the user to go and use it without seeing what's going on behind the scenes. Makes it better performance-wise, and it also makes it easier for me to edit. The last thing I didn't mention with hidden text inputs is that actually in the URL at the top, you see what those values are. So you'll see it be hidden underscore if you decide it hidden. That you may or may not want to show that, but for me, one thing that I find really useful is if you want to then go and send that dashboard state to somebody else and go, hey, just go and check this out, copy the URL, send it across, that's it, job done. They will more than likely see almost everything in the same way that you have. So yeah, hidden text inputs.
Awesome. Andrew, anything from you?
I mean, like I like using like hidden base searches because at the moment I'm working on a few dashboards for comparing environments that we were working with a client. So we've got one really big base search to get all the comparison stuff in with, but I did hear you did have a warning about having too much data there, so I'm going to have to double check my dashboard tomorrow just to ensure that it won't ever hit any of those sort of limits.
I think, I might be wrong, but I think that's where you could possibly make use of load job to get around that problem. But load job is kind of a finicky command, especially in a search head cluster environment, because if you're not sharing those knowledge objects across your search head cluster, then you may encounter issues with load job. So it is kind of a really handy command, but take it with a pinch of salt and a bit of a warning, same as base searches really. Yeah.
And I guess a way around that, Tom, might be to previously summarize a large data set into a summary index and then just use the aggregate results for whatever you're trying to graph or visualize.
Yes, absolutely. On the subject, I'm just going to let the dog out 1 second. It's a good job it's out of office hours. Yeah, one thing with summary index as well that I haven't covered because it's not really dashboarding, it's summary indexing, is that to make sure that if you've got a search set, a safe search that's running over a set period of time to populate a summary index, that's great until you have an outage, and then it's not great because you're going to miss data within your summary index. So like I mentioned with if you specify earliest and latest taking precedence in your search, what you could do is run a save search, running a sub search in your generating search that's actually getting the data and referencing that against the summary index that you're populating, and get the latest event, and then return that as your earliest statement. Get the latest event, add a second onto it, and then return that back as your earliest. And then that means you've got a complete set of time where you won't be missing any data. So you're covering yourself if you have an outage. So that's kind of that's a really good one to take advantage of when it comes to summary indexing as well. Completely off piece from dashboarding, but yeah, I kind of spoke to a lot of people and they were really impressed that you could do that. And hadn't thought of it before, and it makes summary indexing a lot more reliable than it may have otherwise been.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. Any other questions for Tom before we move into the roundtable, in which any questions can be asked, including to Tom? Okay, Tom, thank you so much.
I've got something that's perhaps. Oh, sorry.
Go for it, Hal.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, something that's perhaps less of a. Oh no, I don't want to say not a question, more of a comment, because that's a cliche, isn't it? But something that I sort of discovered a little while back, and I was wondering if this is like a well-known thing that I'm coming late to this. But I've done dashboards with quite a lot of base searches before, and the typical way that I'd always done them was to obviously take the common elements from all the search, move that into the base search, and just have the minimum part in the post-process searches. But what I was typically doing was having my filtering elements, my search elements within the base search. And you change a drop down or a filter, the base search gets redispatched to the indexer, takes a second to come back. And it occurred to me, and proved to be faster, that if the data set without the filter is small enough, it actually, although you end up repeating yourself, you get much better performance if you put the filter in the post-process search, because it seems obviously not to redispatch to the indexer, so it's just to load on the search head, and the views then updating maybe 1/10 of a second instead of a second or two. And I don't know if this is like a common thing or whether I'm just making it up as I go along, but I found that quite useful.
I think that's a great observation. I think with smaller data sets, you would probably find it's more quicker to do that because you're pulling everything out. It kind of depends on your architecture as well. If you have if your environment is small enough, certainly if it's like an all-in-one or a testing environment, you probably would find it quicker to do that. But you kind of also throw a lot into the search head, and you're putting a lot in memory. So if you've got a large amount if you've got searches within your generating search that's going to filter down those events quite massively, then you probably want to send that. But if actually your filters are going to bring back almost everything every time, then absolutely, just bring back everything and then filter on your post-process searches. Absolutely, you can do that. The other thing as well with base searches that I forgot to mention or didn't mention was that if you craft a base search so that it actually is going to then, it can then be read by all your post-process searches that could be read by it, and then you inspected that full search later on, it will look weird. There is no way that you would probably write a search in that way, because you're trying first to get your data set in a certain format that means that you can then be read by everything, and then you filter on it again. So for instance, you might have your generating search, then a time chart, and then just a stats count at the end. That would look weird if you're looking at a search in isolation, but actually it makes sense because it's a stats count as a post-process search on your base search. So I went completely off tangent again. It's what I do.
I think that's one of the interesting things with Splunk, is something that's always intrigued me, is because essentially anything from a single alert through to one small pie chart, you can track it all the way back to zeros on an index or an S3 bucket that are being pulled in via smart store, which are being aggregated and summarized at the indexer level before being set with the search head, and all these various layers. And sometimes you can go very deep to try and have to, in fact, to try and optimize, especially in an environment that might be struggling, or a data set that's pushing the boundaries of Splunk Enterprise. Cool. Well, we'll go to the round table, see if there's any generalized Splunk questions. Tom, once again, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. But yeah, does anyone have any questions whatsoever? And hopefully someone or multiple people will come off mute and do their best to answer it.
Yeah, just before we do, just a quick reminder that this is being recorded and will be put on to one of our YouTube channels. So please avoid mentioning confidential information or anything that you don't want to be made public, especially if you're doing client work. Try not to identify people like that.
Good point. And if I answer a question, don't criticize me, because I might have to rewatch it a few times. Any questions? Anything whatsoever around Splunk or associated technology? Wow. Seems that everyone over at Splunk Answers must be working overtime.
I'm going to ask one, but it's completely not. It's not exactly something that you'd necessarily get answered at Splunk Answers, and that is just wondering if anyone else has gone and splunked their smart home. If everyone has a smart home, splunked it, and exactly how you may have gone and done that. Bearing in mind that the Splunk environment usually needs to be running 24/7, which is kind of expensive on the electricity.
So I've done a little, but only playing with essentially my Raspberry Pi and then my Mac Mini, which I essentially uses both my desktop and my server, because I don't have large server requirements. So having that running 24/7 isn't too bad. And I think it pulls less than like 40 watts, except when under high load. So then the Mac Mini is a great little home server / desktop PC where you can still run pretty meaty software, and then the Pi has just got the UF binary running on it. I don't have many smart home things, but that's where I do collect the logs from the Pi whole software running on it and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah, I would if I didn't live in a shed flat. So if I move, I might do that. But I splunked myself in the past with a diabetic sensor that I wear. I actually presented this like 2 and a bit years ago now in one of these sessions in person. I don't know if that was recorded or not, but that involved downloading CSV files that like Splunk's not Splunk, CSV files that the sensor would produce for reports, and then I think metrics was just coming out around that time, so I bunted it into a metrics index and did dashboards off of that. So like, but I haven't done that since the presentation, sadly.
Nice. I remember with the virtual racer conf, I splunked my health data on some of those races, and I was stunned, absolutely stunned at the outcome. Like one where I was leading for quite a bit of it. I checked my heart rate versus a walk in the Peak District, carrying a buggy up a really steep hill, and my BPM was only 2 out between that and actually leading a race in a virtual on a computer game. So that was kind of really surprising and scary at the same time.
Should definitely track it during a Boss of the Sock or I think it's a Boss of Observability event, Boo, because things get a little bit strained.
Yes, I can imagine. You know what? I've never actually done one of those outside the trust yet. I really need to.
I think there was one on today for some partners, because I think we had a team there, 122 teams. I think it was good fun.
Nice.
Awesome. Any other general questions? Well, looks like we're going to get to release people early this evening, which, to be fair, in the times of COVID and death by screen, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think then that just leaves us with giveaway time. So for those that have stuck around to the end, someone could be winning some JetBrains, which is a very odd name when you think about it. Andrew, do you still have your randomizer to hand, or shall I pull it up?
I've got it ready, but I put everyone's name in, so there have been people who have left the call.
That's okay. I think it's fair that if people attended, they can be put in. I don't think that's unfair.
Yeah.
Everyone stayed till the end of Tom's presentation, which, to be fair, was the main event.
Mm-hmm. And can I just also remind everyone to RSVP for the event, because I think there's a couple of people on that haven't. It's just for tracking metrics on the user group, so with the user group staff themselves can see that we've had a decent attendance. So if you haven't already, please do RSVP. So let me try to share my browser, if Teams would allow it. I can finally see people's faces. Share content. Teams is just taking a while. I'll just share screen and. Right. Can you see the wheel there?
Nothing. Oh. Yep. We've also got a warning: accessibility access.
Yeah, just ignore that. Just go to the side. So, is everybody in here? So I'm just gonna click to spin. I think it's Chris Maitland.
Chris Maitland.
Thank you, Scott. I love it when it does the text-to-speech thing.
Yeah.
It's killing my
Tom, next time you're back, we will expect you to build this into a dashboard.
You can count on it. To be fair, actually, that's not a bad idea for... Yeah, okay. You're on.
Awesome. I think, Andrew, you'll be able to pull the RSVP report, and we can send an email to Chris and get that sent out to him.
It doesn't actually have email addresses in the report, so that's going to be fun. So if Chris, you are in the chat.
It's a download. It's a download.
Is he? Okay. I can...
Thanks, Damien. Perfect. Awesome. Well, I think that is us. Thank you to everyone, and again to Tom for speaking, and Andrew for setting everything up. As always, get involved. Anything to finish us off with, Andrew?
I was going to bring up, so there's brand new Splunk Enterprise 8.2, which went into Splunk Cloud maybe a month before that. So, sort of on a similar topic to what we were, the main event, Dashboard Studio was released. Sadly, it doesn't have as much content as Tom presented earlier. It would be really nice to have better token support and the ability to edit pages, to have CSS and JS and all sorts of inbuilt things, but it's still relatively new. There might be improvements as we go. And then I think there's a bunch of other features like deferred search, I think, is now there. There's new JSON search command support and some good Splunk optimization. So if you haven't read the release notes about that already, I would have a look both on the Splunk Cloud, I think it was the April release, and Splunk Enterprise 8.2, because it's always fun to see what goodies they're adding. I think they added like a latency thing to Splunk Health that was actually mentioned on one of the partners calls, so I think it's gone public now. Yeah, so like add improvements to the health status of your search cluster and things like that. So yeah, I think that's the only thing I was wanting to bring up.
Awesome. Well, have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, as we said earlier, if you've got any ideas, questions, or you'd like to share something next time, please reach out to Andrew or me, or both, and we'll make it happen. So yeah, stay safe and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.